Diluc's story starts back when his father was still alive. Not much is known about his mother, but there are some theories and speculations that she might have some connection to the Hexen Circle because of the teacup. I know, solid theory. Teacup lore. Serpus is Diluc's father, who owned the Dawn Winery and was well known all throughout Mondstadt. He had a dream of becoming a part of the Knights of Favonius, but he was rejected, probably due to the fact that he had no vision. His son Diluc, on the other hand, does have a vision, so he became a part of the Knights of Favonius in his father's place. Diluc was quite the happy and righteous man due to his upbringing, but sadly, that happy, cheery demeanor would later be crushed due to the passing of his father and the 2 betrayals that followed. His relationship with Kaeya. To learn more about Diluc, we need to learn more about his brother Kaeya, Diluc's adoptive brother. Kaeya was left near the Dawn Winery by his father one fateful day. Serpus found him and took him in to raise as his own. Him and Diluc grew up pretty close to each other, with Kaeya being the more mysterious of the two. Everyone knew how much they meant to each other, going as far as to say they were always in sync with each other. But alas, that bond will later be shattered. On the day that their father died, Kaeya had arrived too late. The man that had raised him all these years had already been too heavily wounded, and Diluc had to relieve him of his pain, killing him. He couldn't even share in his father's last few moments, but during that moment, he felt a relief-like sensation, like a burden has just been lifted off his shoulder because of the heavy secret he held in his heart. Now he wouldn't have to live through seeing his adoptive father feel betrayed by the fact that he was actually a spy from Conria. One might think that was selfish of him, and he probably would agree with you. After his confrontation with the Knights, Diluc returned to the winery, and was later greeted by Kaeya, who felt the need, for some godly reason, to tell him of his origin as a spy from Conria. This moment was the one that broke the brothers' bond. Diluc, fresh from seeing his father die, and being betrayed by the Knights of Favonius, was now met with another stab to a growing wound. Losing his composure, he attacked Kaeya, and at that moment Kaeya not only lost his dear brother, but also gained his cryovision, as if the gods were laughing at him. Now I want to go on a little tangent and say, I think the reason Kaeya might have told Diluc, obviously, looking from an outside's perspective, what he did was wrong. You don't just go up to someone who just lost their dad and be like, actually, I'm not who I say I am. But at the same time, Kaeya was a kid when he was left in Mons. You can't blame him for keeping it a secret all these years. He was probably scared of being betrayed. But now that their father has died, and everyone's just airing out their dirty laundry, he decided it's time. There's no better time than the present after, right? I feel like he could have waited. It would have been so much better. Diluc would have probably taken it better if Kaeya had told him at a much better time. But they were both going through a horrible moment in their life, and Kaeya just happened to say something he shouldn't have said. I'm sure he feels bad about it. I don't think he regrets it, but I'm pretty sure I think he feels bad about it. And I personally believe Diluc still cares for Kaeya, maybe even feels a tad bit guilty for harming him, but due to how their personalities clash, a reconciliation is hard to reach. I do hope whoever's give them some sort of a reconciliation arc, probably before one of them is dying. They're gonna go with the whole they're not gonna apologize before one of them is dying arc, and I don't like that. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to see that. Both brothers still care for each other a lot, but the past is just so painful to bring up right now, and they just need the right situation to push them out of it. Locking them both in a room would work. Should work. Maybe. His relationship with the Knights of Favonius. Diluc is known to not like the Knights. Some even saying he hates them, but it wasn't always like this. There once was a time when Diluc loved the Knights because of his father's dream of becoming a member of the Knights, but being unable to join, likely due to not having a vision. Diluc made it his life goal to make that wish come true for him and joined the Knights. He grew among the ranks pretty quickly and had a bright and successful future ahead of him, but as we can see, that's not how it went. His dislike for them stems from how they handled his father's death. On the night that Serpus died, Diluc went to the Knights for help and was met with an order to cover up his father's death. The people he trusted most to avenge his father and bring justice to the wronged had failed him. That night he quit the Knights. His father's death was the Fatui's fault, and a member of the Knights had been colluding with them. Irach was his name, and I believe Jean had him removed from the Knights due to his betrayal. I don't think Diluc hates the Knights anymore. The trust he once had for them is just no longer there. He respects certain members of the Knights, like Jean, Lisa, etc., but he will probably never join their ranks again, and I'm sure Jean and the rest also understand that. Being betrayed by the ones you trusted most isn't something you can just get over with time. Though Diluc has worked through his issues and is dealing with his loss in a less destructive way, the Knights will always remind him of that horrible day. His relationship with the Fatui. The cause of Diluc's father's death was due to the fact that he was using a delusion to protect him and his son from a monster. Irach, who was colluding with the Fatui at the time, had tried to cover it up, but failed. After his father's death, Diluc went on a rampage where he himself used the delusion to attack the Fatui, who were inadvertently responsible for his father's death. After 3 to 4 years of attacking the Fatui and destroying their ranks, he had a quick brush with death, which convinced him to return back to Mondstadt, taking on his father's business while protecting Mondstadt under the alias the Dark Knight Hero, and sworn to thwart any abyss of Fatui threats to Mondstadt. Jean. Out of all the many dynamics in Genshin, this is one of my favorites. I want to see them interact so much more because I feel like there's a lot to be said about their dynamic. It is hinted that they grew up together, both coming from well-respected families, being well-known members of the Knights, and having pet turtles as children. I don't know what that's got to do with anything, but it's a little fact about the two. Jean obviously feels bad about how his father's death was handled by the Knights. Even if she wanted to help more than she already has, the poor woman has her hand full with taking care of everything in Mondstadt, and I believe Diluc understands that. Diluc respects Jean and all she has done for Mondstadt. His distaste for the Knights does not reach her. Both individuals care greatly about Mondstadt, and they do it in different ways. Jean doing it in a more lawful, legal, using the actual system to protect Mondstadt, while Diluc does it in a more vigilante manner. Both of them respect each other and understand why the other does what they do, and I do not think Diluc's hatred for the Knights, or a softer way of saying it, dislike for the Knights, has ever been directed at Jean, which shows that even though he does not agree with everything the Knights are doing, he still knows to respect the ones that are doing their best to keep that safe. They have the same goal, just different ways of doing it. In conclusion, Diluc is a man who has gone through many losses in this world, his father, the Knights of Avonius, and his brother, and is trying his best to deal with it. He can sometimes come off as uncaring to certain people, but based on how much he cares for the traveler, which is shown quite well in their interactions, we can tell he's not a bad guy, just a guy having a rough time. The misunderstanding that people seem to have about his character is that he is uncaring and hates everyone, which isn't true, as he shows great care for those around him. The effect of that horrible night still lingers in his mind. He lost his father when he was quite young, 18 or 19, give or take. I'm not sure, depends on the age difference between him and Kaeya. But not only did he lose his father, he also lost his support system. He lost everyone who could have helped him deal with it in a healthy manner, so he ended up dealing with it in a destructive manner by going on a rampage and killing the Fatui who he blames for his father's death. He has obviously gotten better with dealing with his emotions. You can't blame him for being the way he is, considering all he has gone through in the last few years. Hope this video clears up whatever misgivings you have about his character, whether you choose to like him or not after this. That is all I have for today. Subscribe and see you whenever.